Hello, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Parrish. I'm the head of industry strategy with Intro Hive. Again, Intro Hive is helping our customers achieve revenue acceleration through relationship intelligence. If you'd like to learn more, visit introhive.com. Today, we are going to be discussing, taking a look back at 2021 and all the craziness that happened with that. Thinking about all the lessons that we've learned and how do we set up your revenue teams for success in the new year. Looking forward to 2022. I am joined by two very, very special guests. We have Liz Miller. She is the VP and Principal Analyst for Constellation Research. Thank you for joining us and talking to us, Liz.
You bet. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, and we've also got Jake Dunlap. He is the CEO of Scaled Consulting. Welcome, Jake. Happy to have you here as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. I got to keep my energy up with Liz. Like she brings it at a certain level, and it's good for me. Like I think I bring it, but now I'm really ready. I'm warmed up.
No, I'm excited.
Now watch. I'm just going to be like.
I know she's got all the energy. I
love it.
Be on my toes. I'm gonna have to really be on you, Liz. I could see.
We're gonna have some fun today. Let's do this.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in and let's, I'm going to start the question, dive right into the deep end. The pandemic, we cannot ignore that. The pandemic that has now been about 2 years, changing and sitting right on top of all of our lives. But one of the things that we know it did for sales across many industries is really accelerated their need for digitalization. So, as we saw this happening, some companies were already there. Others, other industries were more of laggards. But what challenges and better yet, opportunities have you seen, come about because of this?
I always want to say what pandemic, because I want to pretend like we're done. Like it's so far past that we're just like, we're going through it. But, oddly enough, I tend to look at some of the kind of odd positives that came because of how we, across every organization, and this is like every leader that I talk to says the same thing. Like, I could focus on all of the negative things that we've all kind of been through, where our emotions are, where our stress levels are, where our, all of that. But it also really forced us to focus on what was truly important for our organizations, for our customers, but also for our people. Right. And we really had to every day that we walked down the hall and opened up our newly minted dining room / playroom / bedroom / office, we had to really figure out what the priority was. And then what the tools and technologies, whether it was data, whether it was new platforms, whether it was new technologies, whether it was picking up the phone and calling your team members to just make sure everyone was okay, right? Whether it was making sure we could commit to getting back to our customers faster, whether we could commit to actually new KPIs that got us to success faster so that we all could be on the same page. I think it really forced us to reassess our priorities and really start to redefine what we wanted durable, profitable relationships to be. Because I think right before the pandemic, we kind of were in this spot where everyone was a little bit about we were uncomfortable about being in business, right? Because we kind of all felt like we needed to be in business to do good, right? We forgot the piece in the middle that was, if we're super successful, if we are really good at being in business, we get to do better and we get to do more and we get to do better by our people. We get to do better by our communities. And I think that the pandemic kind of recentered our focus on the fact that driving revenue isn't a bad thing.
Right. Very true. Any thoughts on that, Jake?
Yeah, I think the other trend is that the biggest thing that I saw that it's done is there was a group of people that preferred face-to-face. They were laggards in technology, right? And so, I want to talk to someone about it. I want to understand or meet someone and talk about it. And if you look at where we are today, is what the pandemic is proven is that people are willing to make 6-figure, 7-figure purchases without ever actually meeting someone. And so as this group of people have become more technological savvy, it's now what's next. And to me, as we start to get into 2022, it's this experience that right now, most people's digital experience, sales experience is I fire up a Zoom, I stare into the green dot on my MacBook or my DSLR. I stare into that dot because then it's weird because I'm not making eye contact with you. And I don't use my hands. I'm kind of like this. I'm sitting down. And I think really what it's done is people have gotten comfortable in those environments. And now where it's like, okay, what's next? Right. So what's next in terms of creating an actual experience here and something different, like what we could mimic in real life? And how do we bring that digitally? So I think for many companies, it's been, okay, this is the new reality. I mean, we're talking to companies globally now that almost that are like, we're going to build out that you wouldn't believe, we're going to build out an inside sales team for the first time. Right. And we're talking lots of different, companies, industries. Yeah. And so as we've proven this, it's like, what's next? Like, what's the next level of engagement? What's the next level of bringing that energy from face-to-face to digital?
Yeah. I love that because, I can remember, Jake, I remember the first time I had to oversee an inside sales team. And we were always in the office. I think about that now, like, how could I be that manager effectively running that inside sales team here? So then to think about what comes after that and what comes next to build those relationships, I need a nap.
Yeah. No, it definitely, the pandemic definitely lit the fire underneath all of us to, take that moment and really stop and think about how we're spending our time and other resources and what does the future look like and how do we, start taking all of the tools that are at our disposal and using them to the best of our abilities, which really ultimately resulted in better experiences for our customers, or at least a focus on creating better experiences to retain our customers. But one of the challenges that we see, and this is a very interesting topic to me because Liz, you mentioned, just the emotional stress, everything that was going on, this focus on business and changing things that created a lot of challenges for people. And we saw something called the Great Resignation.
Yes.
Across many industries. And it was crazy. And it's like, being here in LA and the entertainment capital of the world, I know a lot of people who are in business, but they're like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I've got to focus on what makes me happy. And I'm going to be an artist, or I'm an actor, or I'm a singer, dancer, whatever it was.
Right. But in LA, they're going to go be a waiter. So we're just,
Absolutely. Yes.
Well played.
But yeah,
I'm an LA girl. I know how that goes.
Yeah, they got to be a waiter. And I mean, for me, what it meant in my everyday life was, I'm at the store and now the lines are a little longer and everything. But we also saw this trend. It did expand into business. A lot of people really started rethinking kind of what did they want to do in terms of business or their professional career. What do you think this means for businesses and organizations in terms of retaining, the talent that they have, especially in a space like sales, where it can be a lot of pressure on you? What type of things do businesses need to, take away from that?
That's such a great question. I mean, I think the first thing that everyone just needs to get really comfortable with, it's when we talk about the Great Resignation, I think we tend to talk about it like it's something that's just on the horizon, like we're just about to experience it and it's coming. Everyone be prepared. No, it's here. Like, we've been in it for like the last 6 months. If you haven't noticed, people are leaving their jobs, but they're not leaving their jobs for like the same reasons they were even just in late 2019 or early 2020, right? People are really leaving their jobs because they're saying, I want to be successful at something and I need to redefine and I want to rethink what success means to me. That doesn't necessarily mean everyone's leaving for some like great eat, pray, love moment experience, right? Like, people aren't walking out in a blaze of glory to like go live in a yurt. Like, that's not what's happening. What's happening is people are saying, listen, you're not helping me be successful. And it's not that, hey, manager, you're not giving me the support, the tools. That's part of it. But they also want to be able to work in the same type of easy digital fashion in which they're used to living, right? So if I can order Instacart and have it be here in 2 hours, if I can order from my favorite restaurants across an entire expansive city, what do you mean I can't pull up those customer records and redefine what my workspace looks like in this digital dashboard? What do you mean I can't find something that's really unique to this customer so I can actually help them a little bit more? What do you mean I have to only focus on my quota and keep churning and burning? Like, that command and control idea of sales is a linear function and process, and we can force people through each step of that, whether it's our customer or whether it's our employee. that's creating an environment that employees are like, this isn't doing anything for me. Like, why do I have to work in this really weird alternate universe? So I think what we're seeing in the Great Resignation is a desire for people to be on a constant stream of success, a constant stream of gratification, a constant stream of learning. They want to feel like there's this momentum and it's an accelerating momentum, right? That they're constantly getting better, achieving more, doing more. They want to get off the phone after helping a customer and actually feel good about what they just did and know that customer is going to call back because that customer is happy, right? It's these kind of real fundamental moments that I think when we think about business, we think we've empowered. When instead what we've done is automate the system, right? So we really kind of have to change both the processes and the tools so that we have the modern tools and functionalities. Like, yeah, sometimes people want to put a silly filter on their video, right? Like, yeah, they want it to be as easy as Snapchat. But more importantly, they don't want to have to go through 10 different systems and toggle through 3 different, dashboards just to get the answer they need.
Yeah. That's a great point. You as a CEO, Jake, I mean, I'm sure you have a good perspective on this in terms of keeping everyone happy.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I think. And I did a post about this a few weeks ago on LinkedIn. The companies that the Great Resignation has impacted the most is the companies that weren't investing in people beforehand. And that's why, you still have some companies that are like, yeah, like it's not like we've had a little bit, but the companies that aren't being impacted as much are companies that already understood that your job as a company is to take care of your people and to provide opportunities and to provide transparency for them. Those are the companies that aren't feeling it. Yeah. And that's just, and I think that's the thing to understand here is the Great Resignation is affecting companies that, especially in sales, that stopped investing in the people as people and instead raised a generation of sales leaders who only know how to do pipeline meetings, as opposed to, hey, like what motivates Liz? What motivates Jake? And how can I provide this amazing experience for them? And that's what we've seen. I mean, and look, we had someone leave a few months ago. She wants to go write a book. Amazing. Like, how can we help you on that journey? Like, we don't have that opportunity here, but for the most part, and, I shouldn't knock on wood, but, we've got 40 plus people globally and we haven't felt it. And we, even when we look at our client base, it's very easy to see the companies that are like, we're hurting for talent. And then when you look at what their culture looks like internally versus the companies that are like, hey, we're growing. Like, yeah, of course, it's like more difficult to find new people because the market is so hot right now. But I just think that as you think about yourself as an organization or a sales team or as part of a sales organization, if people feel like you're invested in them and you're really focused on their growth, which is, one of the things that Liz had mentioned, then people usually stay. It's not usually for that extra dollar. If it's $50,000 more dollars, then there's not a lot you can do either. It's like, hey, I get it. It's 50,000 more. I'm paying you 80, like go. So I just think a lot of companies need to keep that in mind. And really, we're seeing this more and more. We're doing some really cool, like new leadership development programs for some big global companies. And people are starting to realize, look, if we don't take care and invest in our people, they're going to leave. And it's not that that's like a new idea. It's that I think there was probably a part in the mid 2010s to later where things were so good, like the market's so good, everything's so good, and people are paying more money that we kind of lost sight about the whole goal early on, which is you got to invest in the people. And because people are leaving jobs, companies stopped investing as much, and then they started leaving jobs because companies. And so we've got to kind of break the circle, and it's got to be the companies that break the circle, that even if you're worried about people leaving, it doesn't mean that you don't invest in them the same way that you did when people stayed at jobs for 5 years.
Jake, I kind of need to give you like a digital high five, because remember when people thought like investing in their people meant like buy a foosball table?
Yeah.
Remember those days? Right? Like, that's not investing in your people. Like, that's investing in your like ambiance. Like, and I think that we misunderstood that, like giving people a great space and place to work is part of the investment, but it's part of the investment, right? But you said something that I thought was so amazing, which was you had someone who wanted to write a book and your first question was, oh my God, how can we help you? Mm-hmm. Like fundamentally, That's the investment. Like, that's the greater investment. It's that investment of like, how can we help? How can we be part of your success? That's so exciting. Instead of how much money can we throw at you to make this problem go away? That's not investing.
Yeah.
Like, empathy is the investment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think also just, looking at overall enablement, I go by a saying, if I know something, I can make a statement. If I understand something, I can drive a conversation. And I think, companies really have to invest in making sure that their employees understand the value of the products or services that they bring so that they can drive those conversations. I think when I look back at, sales trainings and everything from past organizations that I worked with, it's just kind of like, okay, here's your bullet points to know, and you just kind of drill those into the customers. But I think now we're understanding, even from a customer perspective, time is very valuable. And the quicker you can get to the point, the better. And you need to understand what you do and how it's actually going to create a solution for me in order to save me that time and be of value to me. So I think, companies are recognizing, or at least have to recognize, that investing in the enablement and making sure your teams truly understand your product as a solution and the value that it brings is so important. But still on this topic of kind of, employee satisfaction, if you will, how much do you think the shift to remote working had an effect on this? Because I know, for me and friends that I spoke with, it kind of highlighted some of those disconnects in terms of the organization of the company. And it was very difficult for them to shift to working remotely, but also just having the free time to have your life kind of staring in your face all day while you're working. And it gets you thinking like, is this really what I want to be doing? Or should I be spending more time here? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, we were fortunate. Look, I would like to think that I had the foresight, right? But, we were already probably 80, we had offices in New York and Austin, and we had some kind of hubs, but for the most part, our people were already remote. And so for us, I think that was an advantage, that we had already been more opportunistic. And that's the advantage of being, 40 person versus maybe a 400 person company is, you can make those decisions. What I would say is maybe my vantage point now is engagement. And, right now it's like, so we're experimenting with a tool called Gather, which is a metaverse tool. It's like it's called Gather Town, where it's like a virtual office where people go. So instead of us like slacking asynchronously and like, hey, do you have 5 minutes? Yes, I have 5 minutes. Okay, here's a Zoom. Okay. Oh, I don't have 5 minutes anymore. It's like, people, you can just like walk your avatar up and go just like, oh, hey man, like the same way that you used to do it in an office. And so I think for me now, I've moved past, remote or remote hybrid. We're there. It's there. We were already moving the digital nomad life way before 2020 happened. Now it's how do we create serendipity digitally and remote? I don't have the perfect answer here. We're trying a whole bunch, but it's like, how do you create like, again, like the time you used to just like bump into someone. And so now it's like, I have to set another meeting. Oh, great. Yes, that's what I need. I only have 65 today. Last week I had 40.8 hours of meetings. I'm like, this is horrible. Like, life was not meant to be in meetings. It's meant to be doing work. Meetings and work are not the same thing. And so I think for a lot of companies, remote is here. And now it's how do you create environments? And it's not just happy hours. We did all that stuff. We did the happy hours. We did the escape rooms, and it was cool. And like people liked it. They had fun. And then we'd try to get people together. But now what I'm really trying to think about, how do we create serendipity, which is that random bump in? And I think the metaverse and what's coming there is going to be the answer for that, you're going to have these like virtual offices where you kind of bump into people, and maybe it'll augment Slack and Zoom internally, or maybe it'll replace it in some companies internally. So I just think companies need to be thinking about that more and more, and teams too. How do I create serendipity versus just like moments where we have fun for an hour and a half and then we leave?
Nice. It's what events had to go through, right? Like, and talk about where sales really had to readjust, especially in B2B, right? That minute that the big conference and, the opportunity to meet your customer on the sales floor, on the conference floor of whatever big conference we were at, all gone, right? The big user groups, everything gone in an instant. And so not only were we having to work from home, we were having to try to figure out what this new motion of relationship building was, whether it was relationship building with our own team, with our managers, with our people, whether it was relationship building with our customers, right? And I think a lot of people went through that really awkward. So, okay, when you're in you're with someone and that person looks at you and they're like, so I think it's now time that we call this a relationship. And okay, we all know that moment, right? And then you're sitting there so I thought we were in a relationship. I don't know what we've been doing this whole time. Okay, that is kind of what everyone just went through in sales, right? Because sales was okay, so we're going to build this relationship now with you, customer. And the customer's sitting there so I thought we were in a relationship already because I've been filling out all these forms and I've been going to all these webinars and I've been doing all these things. And remember how we met at that trade show once, right? So they were thinking, well, we already have a relationship. And suddenly sales was oh, dang it. I got to figure out how to now backfill because I don't have those old standard mechanisms, the trade shows, the events, let's take you to a game, all the things we could do to create those opportunities for serendipity, to create, and I think that word is so spot on, Jake. It's that moment when you walk past someone at the conference and go, hey, oh my God, I haven't seen you in a year. Let's figure this out, right? Gone. When was the last time you felt serendipity on a Zoom? Yeah. Never, right?
Planned.
It's all planned. It's all planned. So I think that what ended up happening was sales started looking not only for new places and spaces where that moment could happen. And all of our people were doing this, right? Managers were trying to kind of create those opportunities in those moments. Customers were desperately looking for those moments as well, because people like those chance meetings, those opportunities to say hi and catch up. And they didn't exist anymore. And so I think that started what I have seen is that it actually highlighted probably the biggest problem that for decades we had been able to sweep under the rug, which was we just didn't have the right data to tell us what relationship we were in. Right. And all of a sudden we were sitting there in a Zoom in front of our sales enablement tools, in front of our giant CRM systems, in front of all of these great technologies that our organizations had put in front of us. And we were I don't know what screen relationship is on, right? I don't know what screen tells me what I can actually have a conversation about if I'm in a moment of serendipity. So I think that what it started to really show was just how primitive, to be honest with you, our capacity to build those relationships and capitalize on those moments of experience really were, because we just didn't have the raw materials. We had a lot of the infrastructure. We just didn't have a lot of the raw materials that allowed us to capitalize on those moments of empathy, on those moments of excitement, on any of the moments of serendipity that we could create.
No, that's absolutely spot on to the way I've been thinking about this and the things I've been observing as well, because, there is this need for relationship intelligence. And if any of our marketers are on the call, I hope you take that, everything that Liz said, and just throw the Intro Hive logo at the bottom there. But no, I really love what you said, because it is bringing this focus back on relationship intelligence. How do you know if you have a relationship, and to what extent? What is the strength of that relationship? Moving digitally, it's kind of do we all actually understand digital etiquette? Do we understand the touch points and interaction digitally and what that means for our relationship? Because this is all very new for us. How long does it take someone to respond to our email? Does that say something about our relationship? And now it's forcing us to think about all these things a little bit more, because we don't have the benefit of being face to face and in person and seeing the body language and getting all of those cues. So yeah, it's a totally different way of looking at things in a different space we're in, and really brings the importance of relationship intelligence. So with that in mind, what do organizations need to be doing to try to bring in the right alignment internally in order to facilitate all of these changes or evolution that needs to happen?
I mean, I'll take a stab to start. I think it starts with some of the things I talked about before, which is investing in your people on the soft skills of whatever the role is, and laying out for your people clear career development plans. And that's not just like an annual report. It's saying like, look, hey, you're at a level 1, here are the skills of a level 2. Here's our plan to work with you to get there. So I think that because, what you find is that if you invest in the people, they take care of the customers. If you invest in a culture where your people are empowered, it's not that they don't have KPIs and guidelines. That's not what this is about, but that their managers, VPs are investing in the people. And you come up with some of the structure pieces around what are what is working, what's not working, which is what technology should be telling you. Then I think a lot of this starts to just manifest itself, that if people feel safe at work, if people feel cared about, then they're going to be safe to have more open, better conversations with their customers. And this isn't like some kumbaya, like, everyone needs to have like a yoga room or something. It's more about like going back to before of, if we're investing in our people, we're giving them frameworks, we're setting them up for success, they feel safe at work, then they can be their best version of themselves in those customer conversations. And so for me, it's how can you enable an environment to where people feel that way, and you create the process and structure too. So they're like, hey, I know what to do at each step of the process, but I can like show up and be myself too. And I think what's happened is we've especially when it comes to sales, we've actually tried to over templatize things so much to where that's where a lot of this burnout, I feel like, is the last 4 or 5 years, is this obsession with Medic and Bant and other things has led to this, like, that was supposed to be a part of the conversation versus like a richer discovery conversation. And now more and more teams, like, this is what your job is, qualify up front. So and there's a lot of companies that's the mindset. We got to qualify. We did a survey. We had 1,400 people respond. 54% of sales organizations said that before a person sees a product, that there should be a demo call. 4% out of 1,200 buyers said they wanted to talk to someone to have a qualification call first. 4% versus 54%. So going back to some of the things Liz said, we just have a disconnect here, but it starts with how we treat our people and how we set them up for success. And, do we have them doing the right things or empowering them to do the right things so they can show up more for their customers, and thinking about these dumb things like qualification calls, et cetera, that add no value. And to say, hey, maybe that served a purpose and time in the past, but now look, people hate it. Customers hate it. The reps feel that. They hate this kind of mindset. So there's a lot there, I think, for people to think about, but a lot of this starts with, as a team, as a division, how are you investing in your people to show up more authentically, effectively for customers?
Yeah. everything you just, so I couldn't agree with you more, Jake. I mean, I think that, it's funny, sales and marketing kind of went through this really at the same time. We started to see opportunities to workflow, right? We started to see opportunities to create automation paths and to kind of allow for engagement automation, to allow for kind of process automation, to really, the intention in the very beginning, if we think back, even 20 years ago, was to take the mundane off the plates of our people who should be empowered to do more. We shouldn't have to have our people sitting there like, okay, like anyone in sales and marketing watching this webinar right now, I know I can't see you, but do me a favor, raise your hand if you've had to spend more than an hour of your life cleaning a spreadsheet. Right? Like, oh my gosh, right? Like, it's like hours and hours and hours. That's the epitome of mundane, right? So we always have intended for tools to take those mundane tasks off the plates of our people, because our people should be valued more than that. But something funny happened along the way, because we started to realize that the more that we automated, the more we could measure. And the more that we could measure, the more we could prove effectiveness and efficiency. And the more that we proved efficiency, we could prove that efficiency drove our bottom line, both up in performance and acquisition and down in costs. And we over-indexed on that, because all of a sudden, automation became all about how can we push people faster? How can we get more, right? It wasn't about, like, the sales pitch was always like, oh, but you can get so much more training and you can help your people sell better. But in reality, what everyone actually implemented was a way to go tattle on your salespeople for not doing process step number 17 in the 37 step process that we workflowed, right? And if there was something that I think people, really smart organizations have started to embrace, is the understanding that just because you can create a workflow doesn't mean you're actually creating a journey, right? They are not synonymous. A workflow is a process. It should take those points of mundane drudgery off the backs of our wonderfully talented people so that they can spend more time getting to know our customers and adding to that richness, adding to that relationship. But instead, we were like, here's template number 97. It has to be sent out at exactly 8 a.m. because that's what AI told us. Oh, okay. You don't need to be one of our great people to be able to do that. So I think it's about getting back to that idea of, are my tools, are my systems working in direct service of my people and my customers? And if you can make those two things, if technology becomes the conduit to make those two people connect even better, your bottom line is going to improve from that. You're going to see the performance efficiencies. You're going to get all of those amazing things. We just can't skip those two amazing people in the center, which is our customer and our people. We just leapfrogged over them.
Well, I think too, I mean, just to, I guess, double down on what you're saying is that we invested in these tools, and instead of, like you said, unlocking and giving time back to do higher quality activities, we just use them to push the more button. And in sales, it's the easiest one because it's just send more.
Yeah.
And what the issue is, because I can't track how much better Jake's email was quality wise, we default to more. And I think we're seeing more and more companies, what we're trying to do is get them to back off of true number of emails and calls and move to what we'd call like first outcomes, like 5 meaningful conversations a day, which is like someone said they're going to book a meeting with me or they connected me with the right person. And Jake, if you get there and you want to send 35 videos and again, use a relational tool to do it, like great. And if Johnny needs to send email and direct, amazing. And I think that the answer is somewhere in between there, but we've got to stop the over focus on more activities equals this beautiful spreadsheet that then says more conversations, and then focus on what we're calling like first outcome, because more isn't working. More isn't working. It's like 40%, 45% of SDR teams are hitting their number because it did work, right? When people weren't sending as many emails, like in 2015, 16, 17, you could just hit more because people weren't used to getting as many emails. And now it's broken and we keep going back to the same old plays. And so I think we have to think about how we use relational data, how we use, again, people's ability to interact in the moment, like you said, to focus on quality. And not that there shouldn't be zero activities. Fine. You want to have some activities, but they're true minimums that you want people to hit so they can go and do what they're best at. Maybe Johnny's really good at talking, but he can't write. He sucks. Or I'm really good at writing and I can't call. So I might still do calls during the day, but maybe writing or interacting on social media is where I'm going to land. And so this managing, I call it managing to the mean, which is what we do right now in sales, is we manage to the middle. It just, the variations and activities we're asking people to do is just so different today than it was 4 or 5 years ago. And it's not working.
Yeah. And it's funny because the trend lines between what's happening in marketing and what's happening in sales from a performance perspective are just so like evenly keeled and on path, because I think the reality is that we've gotten really used to seeing losing numbers and calling them wins, right? Like, so marketing truth here, like dirty, dark secret in marketing, right? We look at sending out those bulk emails and we're like, buy a list of 10,000 people. And we get really excited when we see like a 20% return of people who open the email. Okay, 20% is a losing number, right? Like it means that 80% of people did not care about what you said, right? But we get really excited about the 20. And I think in sales, we're also, because we've opted for more, because we've opted for the quantity, we're like, okay, great. Like, here's how many leads came in through the funnel. All right, we converted on 27%. You're like, did we ignore the fact that left a whole lot back on the table rather than really looking at not only what's coming into a funnel that is now so complex and moving in so many different shifting ways. It's not the linear workflow anymore, right? We can't manage to that. We can't manage to the middle anymore. The middle changes every hour, right? Like are you really going to chase that bubble, or are we going to start? I mean, Jake, I think you nailed it, right? Are we going to start understanding that sometimes it's those variations in performance, those variations in our people that make the best experiences. It's not what we architect, it's the foundation that we architect that allow our people to say, hey, I'm really good at conversations. You're really good at writing. Can you write a template that works for me? Yes. High five. Like, let's collaborate. Let's let our people do that. Rigid systems don't allow for that. Rigid metrics don't allow for that. You're going to always need those metrics. Like, you need to count stuff. Like, let's be fair. But you also need those, like, first outcome, like the business KPIs of what does growth actually look like? Is growth something that's sustainable? Is it lifetime? What's that middle of strategic, like that strategic sales organization metrics that we need? And then what are the business metrics, right? What's important to the business? Because it's not just about one layer of metrics. It's about the layered, it's the layered life in metrics now in analytics.
No, you make some really great points there. I mean, I've already got probably 5 more webinar topics that just popped into my head from this in itself. But I mean, I think
Christmas tree decorating is one of them, right? Like, we've got that.
Absolutely. I got to get that one out.
Okay.
Quickly. But no, I think, I mean, it really does speak to a need to re-examine sales culture in general, and the methodologies and processes that have been built off of traditional sales culture. And we're shifting. The world is changing. Jake, you made some really great comments about allowing people to pretty much insert themselves into the process. And I think as we think about social media and being in this world where everybody is, trying to be seen and be known and find your individuality and promote it, but then we go into a work environment where it's like, no, be this robot and just do this, this, and this. And I think there's a major conflict here. And I think organizations that are going to be successful are going to start really thinking about how to get the most out of your employees and make them feel valued for the gifts that they bring more so than the skills that they've acquired. And so, I think that's such a great conversation, and I would love to continue on that. But with all of that in mind, what are you excited about in terms of, all of these things, even if it's something that seems bad right now, but that it's going to force us to kind of turn in a different direction and go in the right direction? What type of things are you excited about in terms of, catapulting us forward?
You mean other than you going and playing the guitar that I notice is in the background? Can we ask for that? Like, is there a way that we can run a poll?
next to the Christmas tree?
Next to the Christmas tree is a guitar. Lights. I'm just saying.
Yeah, like it's going to be a Yuletide.
I'm not even going to front. Like, that whole shelf is typically, coffee cups and what pens or whatever I need. And for this, I'm like, let me try to make this look a little nicer. But I do keep the guitar out. A pandemic, little goal of mine was I want to learn the guitar. So I learned that if I keep it in its case tucked away, I don't practice at all. I don't even think about it. So I'm now trying to keep it out visible. So that way, every time I see it, just throughout the day, I'll grab it and just kind of practice for, 10 minutes or so. And that has actually been helping me. So,
okay, that right there is the theme of your next webinar, right? Because in all honesty, everything that we've just been talking about, the Great Resignation, how to create a new sales culture, how to create a new process so that your authentic people bring their authentic selves to the screen, to the table every single day. You can't hide that management skill and not practice it every single day and expect to get better at it, right? But for some reason, when it comes to making change, creating a new organization, creating new operations, bringing out new technology, learning about data, right? Data is a skill. For me, my currency is words. Right. I've always been in marketing. My language has always been my skill set. Numbers, not so much. Like, I remember actively being in college and being like, I'm going to go into marketing and public relations so I don't have to deal with numbers. Thanks, data analytics. Thanks, digital. That really made me reassess my statistics course that I took. But The reality is if you hide it, if you keep it in a case, if you don't put it right out in front of you every single day, your people, you leaders are never going to practice what we need the most. And whatever that is, learning empathy, being a better leader, understanding data science more, you got to keep it out in the open and do that. And I think the thing that gets me most excited about what's coming next is that our people are more willing to put the uncomfortable out of its case and have the uncomfortable be out in the open. I'm not really good on the phone. I'm not really good as a writer. I'm not really good at closing. I'm not really good at staying on top of contracts. They're more willing to address that uncomfortable, I'm not the best at that idea. And they're willing to take it out of the case, and they're willing to try and get better. So the question for every leader and everyone who's looking at new tools, new technologies, whatever it is, are you willing to be the leader that doesn't penalize someone for what makes them uncomfortable? But are you going to be the leader that celebrates their willingness to change? And I think that's what excites me, because I'm seeing more organizations say, no, I'm good with someone admitting that they're not great at everything. I think that's awesome. How do I help, right? How do I empower that person to go and take everything out of the case?
No, that's an amazing point, because it really makes me think about also just allowing your employees or your team members really to do what works for them, and focusing more on the outcomes. Again, if you work a certain way, if you got a certain workflow and process, of course that doesn't completely impede business. But if you've got something that really works for you and allows you to shine the brightest, by all means do that, and not be so rigid into it has to be done this way. Allowing the talented people that you bring into your organization, again, allowing them to showcase and utilize their gifts more so than trying to kind of force skills or certain skill sets into them. Again, another webinar topic that I feel like we could speak an entire hour about, it just sales culture and business culture, and again allowing people to be their individual selves, and understanding as management and leadership how to take all of these wonderful gifts that are part of your organization and create something great. So with that, going into, what other advice do we have for leaderships as they, start to prepare for the new year? What type of things do you think they should be thinking about, or should be top of mind in terms of shifting the culture and really creating something unique that can help them grow revenue?
I think we've got to break out of the box. And what I mean by that is I really don't think it's that difficult to stand out today, because most people are just doing the same basic things. They're sending emails, they're making calls, they're following up. I did a webinar yesterday around gifting and with Sendoso. We talked about that and the results they're seeing. Vidyard is a partner of ours, video. The opportunity to stand out is so easy. Instead of sending an email, send a video showing some personal relevance or something that you have. Right? Instead of doing this, use a smart gift in the process as well, too. That's not like bribery, but that's relevant. That says like, hey, I saw this thing. You can, I saw you're an A's fan. Here's this A's cap, or this thing I just found out about the A's. And here's why that actually matters to your business, right? It's not just like, I saw you went to Stanford or whatever it is. So I really feel like more and more companies need to realize that tools exist to systematize a lot of this. And I'm sure even with Intro Hive, it's the same thing. It's like, wait, this is outside of what we would normally do. We have territories and people use there are tools that can help you to integrate all of this. And so in 2022, we already know these things exist. And if we're continuing to see diminishing returns with traditional email, we have to just be original, because I really think that there's opportunities for companies to blow it out of the water, but they're not going to do it by repeating the same things that aren't working. And so, we've been talking a lot about this. I love the concept, like your classic 80-20. It's like 80% you're executing the process, 20% you're trying to break things, right? And so more and more companies need to think about how they're empowering that 80%. Look, this is a process we know that the data, the AI says works. Now, like to your point from before, how do you optimize this little piece of it? Or you go ahead and try something new. So more and more companies need to adopt that mindset. We're going to do this. We're going to give our people, and we're going to create even processes that allow them to stand out or try something different that aren't traditional, what we would call traditional. And I think companies are going to figure that out. I think companies are like, look, we've got to do something different. We can't keep doing the same thing. It's not working. So that's my advice for 2022. Continue to work on setting foundations and new foundations as you learn, but provide that space for people to be different. And because that, I feel like it's so easy to be different right now, because I mean, the emails and the gifting ideas I get are so terrible. Like just any amount of relevance. You can just Google my name, like anything I'll take, and you'll be any type of relevance. You'll be in the top 5% of people that reach out to me on a daily basis. So just keep that in mind.
No, I'm gonna high five the company that doesn't send me a birthday email and call it personalization.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you know what I mean? Because you know what I mean? Like, you don't fill out your birthday. So your birthday defaults in the data to what? 1/1, whatever year it is. Right. So then all of a sudden on January 1st, you open up your email box and you've got like 30 happy birthday emails. And you're like, it's not my freaking birthday. And then it usually takes me a minute. Like, Oh, I didn't fill out my birthday data. So you don't have that, but you've run a personalization workflow. So now the poor sales business development lead is sitting there sending me an email like, hope you're having a great birthday. I'm like, dude, how many of these birthday emails did you send out on January 1st? Right. It's so easy to break that. And it should be broken. Like, you need to allow that person to be like, yeah, this is stupid. I'm not going to do it. Like it. Yeah. Because it's true. Like, don't do that. And I think that we all tend to, listen, technology has done something funny in that when we started with tools like AI, we got super excited about the little things it could do. Right. And so what does everyone do? Everyone sits there and is like, oh my God, Amazon is so great at personalization. Okay. I'm not knocking Amazon. I am a massive Prime customer. They know that I love them. So with that said, when was the last time you looked at Amazon's recommendations or anything Amazon called personalization and really thought to yourself, wow, Amazon knows me at a level that is so deep and intense, like they are singing to my soul? Or are you sitting there thinking, yeah, I had a baby 4 years ago. She's 4 years old now. She doesn't need diapers. Stop sending me recommendations for diapers. Right. So it's AI does a lot of really cool things. ML can do a lot of really cool things, but we need that person who can say, wow, that's not working for our customer. Let's break that. And let's go in search of different intelligence that can actually tell us something different. What actually aids in us being different? If the goal is to sell more, well, congratulations, like enter the numbers game, go buy more lists, crank out. If that's your goal, like there's a pretty easy, like 3-step system. Like Jake, you and I probably like just get some sticky notes, slap it up, like end a deal. Like Jake's company does not need to be called into that situation. Right. But if you want to sell better, you want to have that lifetime value increase. You want to sell volume. You want to sell over time. You want, at the end of the day, what is the ultimate goal of any customer experience strategy, which is to create a durable, profitable relationship with your customer that stands the test of time. You got to go break stuff. Go break it with AI, go break it with data, go break it with common sense, but also go break it with a little fun. Like, I don't know when we all decided our customers were boring. They're not. Like, you could have some fun with them. It's okay. But you have to keep your eyes on the prize, which is being really good at business.
Yeah. And also focusing in on solutioning. I can never, emphasize that more. Come with a solution, not just a product. If you cannot speak to how your product is a solution, you are wasting my time.
The strategery team.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why are we still having the same conversation? We've been talking about the same thing, not here, but it's like this idea is again, like that's the whole thing about sales. It's so silly. It's just how cyclical things are when they kind of come back. But like just hearing you talk, it's like, it's like, I remember 2005 or 6, right? When I was coming up I was taught the same thing. It's like, don't talk features, mention benefits. And it's like, what are people doing? Like, why
right, but
are
Jake,
we,
then
why
it
is
was
this
called
happening still?
right, but back then, right, some brilliant tactician someplace called that like consultative selling, right?
Of
Remember when it
course.
was like it's
Oh, that's
consultative
coming
selling,
back now, just so you know.
right?
That
Like
is totally
no,
like,
no, no,
we
no.
need
The
to
new one that's
consult
coming
people.
back. Watch out, because 2022, you're going to hear a lot about conversational selling.
Oh,
Someone actually said those words to me, and I was like, hasn't selling always included a conversation? Like, have I been missing something? Like, have I been doing it wrong all this time? Because I thought inherent to the sales process was a conversation. But again, we have to call it something. We want to feel like it's something new, that we're like the center of innovation strategery, right? Like it's like we want to be able to come up with something that's so new that we've fixed the problem. Because what hasn't changed is we know there's a problem, right? Since the dawn of time for sales, since the very first person stood up at their bread stand in the town square and said, buy my bread, not that guy's, there's been a problem with sales. There's been a problem with marketing. There's been a problem with this process. We've never really quite cracked it, because to crack it means that everyone gets to crack it. Then we got to publish it, and then everyone has the secret, and then we're all doing this great. And we're like, we're living in nirvana. What are we going to go solve next? But yeah, next year is going to be, you're going to hear a lot of people try to sell you on like conversational tools, and they can be great. NLP, conversational AI, they're all awesome. But at the end of the day, if they are not in service of your customer or of your people, they are never going to be in service of your business.
Yeah, no, that is a great segue into kind of speaking about our top predictions for 2022. So you've got conversational selling and conversational intelligence. Jake,
what so it was positive. Like, that's not a good prediction. I don't want those to happen.
What do we expect to really happen in 2022? Like, I'll throw it out there. Everybody's going to do great. You're going to grow. You're going to make lots of money. It's going to be amazing. Now, Liz and Jake, you give me the real.
No, Jake goes first. I got to hear his first, because his is going to be so much better than mine. I'm just going to.
No. Okay. What do I think? So I'm always underwhelmed sometimes with some of these predictions that I make, in terms of like how right I am, in terms of where I think where I think we're at versus where we're actually at. So now, after starting to really do this publicly now for 3 years, I think I have like a clearer lens. Look, I do think we will see better integration of tech tools. So I do feel like we've been investing, some companies are investing $700, $1,000 per month per rep. And so, like, again, we're doubling down on part of our business around kind of sales technology integration, because we feel like there is a promise that's just been unmet there, that people are starting to realize like we need to be doing more. So I think we will start to see the tech tools become more enablement friendly and be used more holistically than maybe we're using 20, 30%. So that's one of the more, I think, boring ones. I think the more, I don't know, interesting is, I do feel like we're going to try, just like in B2C now, every website you go to, especially in the US, is analyzing who you are, and you're getting a completely different path or being shown different screens. In B2B, we are light years behind that. But what I do think we will start to do is come up with some amount of tailored customer journeys. Oh, whether it's this person came at, they're here, they're here. So maybe this person will skip the qualification call and move here. Maybe this person came here. So maybe we'll come up with 4 or 5 different options for a sales process versus one. So I think that's the big one that a lot of people need to be thinking about, is how can I start to create some amount of variation for my sales process based on the responses that I get, what the AI tells me, et cetera, so I can meet a customer with where they're at versus treating sales as one size fits all. So we're already starting to see some companies have this mindset. So I think that will start to become, more early adopters will start to, I think, invoke some of those strategies here in the, maybe second half of the year.
No, that all sounds amazing. I hope all of that does come to fruition, because what I would say my prediction is, customers are going to get louder. I think, we've had a very tough last 2 years. People are overwhelmed. People are pressured. People are now having a better sense of what makes them happy. They've had a time to kind of reconnect with themselves, and they're going to speak up about what they want and when you're wasting your time. And
here's the problem. They're not going to speak to you.
Yeah.
Right? Like that, I think you're so right. The customer is going to get louder, but you know who they're going to go talk to? They're going to go talk to their friends. They're going to go talk to their peers. Yeah. They're going to get on social media. You know, they're going to go onto the vlog that they created, you know, while they're making sourdough to complain about your lack of features and functions, right? Like it's going to happen in areas where you are least prepared to accept it. And when they talk to you, they're going to give you an answer like, oh no, I'm just, you know, we don't have the budget. And they're going to walk away. But there's going to be all this other high fidelity signal that they are leaving in all the other places that traditional systems are simply not prepared to intake from. So I think they're going to get a whole lot louder, but I also think they're going to get a whole lot more autonomous, right? So for sales, and Jake, exactly what you said, in B2B, we're going to start seeing this rise of expectation that's being brought about because of systems like CPQ. You know, you have these great configure price quote solutions where customers can literally go in a B2B environment and give you specifically what they want to buy, right? Like they are literally putting it together, including all their service, including all their add-on functions. And it's going to shift where sales and where the seller gets involved, right? So the seller is now confirming, making sure they truly understand how all of these things come together rather than being like, what color did you want, right? So I think if anything, I predict that 2022 is going to be the year of the ER, right? It's because it's going to be about the customer. It's going to be about the seller. It's going to be about the sales agent. It's going to be about the expert. It's going to be about the person who's actually delivering the experience as opposed to the technology that enables it, right? Is the seller able to gather all that high fidelity signal and pick up the phone and be like, hey, wow, we've really been letting you down. I'm here. Tell me what's going on, right?
That's a great point. And it's a great point to wrap up on, because you bring it right back to relationships, people, communication, all of the things that are going to make us successful in life in general, not just selling and in business. So thank you so much for your time, Liz and Jake. I really enjoyed this conversation. Hope we get to do more. Thank you to all of the viewers who participated in this, everyone who submitted some questions or made comments in the chat. Thanks so much. And until next time, happy holidays, happy 2022, and everyone take care.
2022 Thanks, holiday everyone. Party at Jeffrey's house. I'm just saying.
Guitar.
You can fit 3.
Right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you again. Bye, everyone.